All right, and the second game that we have for week 4 here is going to be Xeloo versus Nagashi. Nagashi from Team OTK, Xeloo from Team Gears. So again, one of them bringing the 3 aggro deck lineup, so we'll see if that is going to be the winner here that's going to take it home. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into game 1.
And given that one of the best Targon decks at the moment is paired with Ionia, where they get Deny alongside it, like if my Bastion is used to negate a heavy-handed spell like a Vengeance, and then next turn you're like, okay, let me throw out my second Vengeance and something to try and pop the spell shield, and then the Vengeance just gets denied, like it feels so helpless. But anytime that I try to pick a deck to out mid-game the Lee Sin, it's really the Solari Priestess that feels like the most punishing card in the deck, because I try to set up my, they get down their Lee Sin, I'm like, that's fine, I'll set up my Swain Leviathan, and then all of a sudden a Comet comes out of a Solari Priestess, and I'm just dead in the water.
And it looks like we are going to get 2 hands for Xeloo and Nagashi. So, all right. So I'm glad we held out for this then. This is good. And we do actually get to see this Pirate aggro deck in action, and we already see it. I know you guys can't see it, but there is an Iron Ballista in the hand of Xeloo after the mulligan. So we'll see if this Iron Ballista is going to make an impact, as we were discussing earlier.
All right. So as weird as it sounds, I generally don't love the matchup of Zombie Ash versus aggro. While you are a Frostbite deck, proactively using the Brittle Steels and things like that is still a -1. And Xeloo's running a deck that gets a lot of burn value on attack, even if you do Frostbite the unit. So Nagashi going to have a bit of an uphill battle here, and doesn't really find some of the early game tools that you would want in this matchup. There's, just the Ice Veil Archer in terms of early units. You would love a Rime Fang Wolf or a Kindly Tavern Keeper to try and fight for the board.
So there is 2 Harsh Winds in hand, and 2 Ash, right? So we could actually see an early leveled Ash. I just don't know if that's going to do anything to prevent Xeloo from winning the game. Like, that's not heal. We do have the Unspeakable Horror to heal 1, which will be nice to get rid of something like this Precious Pet or the Saboteur. But I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be enough. Harsh Winds could come in play pretty well in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, I think so Xeloo is going to have the attack token on 5. So if Jack the Winner comes down, maybe you have a blocker for that still. But if it is the Gangplank, you're probably going to have to Harsh Winds that.
Ooh, yeah.
And this is what I was worried about.
That's
that
bad.
Misfortune really destroys this Ice Veil Archer. You needed a heftier unit on the side of Nagashi in that. I mean, Kindly Tavern Keeper would have been the ideal. Rime Fang would have been nice because you get it down alongside the Ash.
Yep.
But yeah, I've never really felt great about the aggro matchup into this deck. And that's why I constantly praise this as a tournament deck with very specific counter matchups. This is not sort of the match that Nagashi thought he was going to win, but he should have no problem picking up a win with this against some of the other decks. Oh, wait, yes, he will, because Xeloo has brought a triple aggro lineup.
So, yeah, the second person bringing a triple aggro lineup. It looks like we are opting to do the Glimpse first to get full value out of the Unspeakable Horror. So I do like this. We could have prevented 1 damage going with the Unspeakable Horror first onto the Legion Saboteur, but I don't think it's worth it to not get the additional card. So I'm glad Nagashi went this route. We'll see if, honestly, Doom Beast might be okay right now just because it gives you that drain too. And that's
okay. That's
that's.
I would have even preferred a Crescent Guardian, just something that can actually block the Precious Pet. But he does pick up a Kindly Tavern Keeper off of the Glimpse Beyond.
Yeah, this Kindly Tavern Keeper will do a lot to at least give Nagashi a chance here and keep him in the game. We see 2 more Glimpse Beyonds too. So although the hand might not be amazing, we have ways to get out of it. We do have Harsh Winds to stall out. We do have Glimpse Beyonds too if we do need to stall out to refuel after that. So things are looking up for Nagashi, but still going to be a little rough in the next couple of turns.
So as much as you would like to get this Ash down, I think I preferred the Kindly Tavern Keeper just because banking that 1 spell mana would be pretty relevant, as now the Harsh Winds is not online for Xeloo's attack turn on 5. So if you had played something like the Tavern Keeper, Xeloo plays a little bit here. If he had gone for a Gangplank pre-combat, you would at least have the Harsh Winds for the Gangplank and whatever you actually end up blocking with that Kindly Tavern Keeper.
Yeah, and I mean, we know Gangplank is in Xeloo's hand. It's coming down next turn on top of this Iron Ballista. This is going to be a rough turn 5 for Nagashi to deal with. And I got to agree with you. This attack doesn't do anything. Technically, it could kill the Misfortune, but I don't see any reason why Xeloo doesn't just take this. because he knows he's going to have a pretty decent attack next turn, knowing that Nagashi is only going to be on 5 mana, won't have harsh winds, but looks like he's going to offer up the misfortune to trade with the Ash.
Yeah, and that was pretty ballsy on the side of Nagashi, honestly. If your opponent had something like a Make It Rain and just blocked with the Precious Pet and made it rain, they've got a really good open attack between the Misfortune and the Iron Ballista, and you don't have the mana for the Harsh Winds, which is going to come into play right now as the Gangplank does come down on the side of Xeloo. You literally have 3 playable cards in your hand. Things just really not working out for Nagashi in this game.
Yeah, and sure, Kindly Tavern Keeper makes you feel okay. You heal a little bit. Maybe you can trade with that Ballista, but you are still looking at taking 9 damage to the face. And when all is said and done, Nagashi will be looking like he'll be at 8 here. We could also play the Ash and block the Gangplank, which looks like Nagashi's going to go with that. That's, I mean, you're taking less damage this way, I believe. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So there's that. But you are sacrificing your Ash. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. You're losing your Ash here. You do already have a Rekindler, so it's not a big deal. So I actually don't mind this. I think that saving as much life as possible is probably the smarter way to go about things here on the side of Xeloo.
Yeah, and we don't see any burn in Xeloo's hand, so you don't have to worry about that Decimate, but it does mean that the Tavern Keeper should probably be the first thing that you play this turn so that your opponent can't respond with the Decimate. And that does just kind of telegraph Nagashi's turn a little bit to Xeloo. You know, you have to start off with a healing spell or something if you were going to make that play. But now, I still don't even feel like Nagashi's in a good spot to stabilize, as we are going to see probably another Gangplank down from Xeloo, and there's no removal that Nagashi has for that. I mean, he will, if Xeloo doesn't go for the open attack, he actually does have a Harrowing for defense, if that's a route that he wants to go. But, I mean, he's only got 3 units in the death pool. That's not even going to contest the board.
Man, and Harrowing on defense just never feels like a good play. No. I mean, that usually means you're on your way to losing the game if you end up having to do that. But we are going to at least see the Keg get pulled here. I imagine we're just going to see the Noxian Fervor in response to go ahead and deal 4 face damage. And once that happens, I think this is just game on an open attack.
Yeah, I actually would prefer Nagashi not to pull the Keg, just because you know that Xeloo got Noxian Fervor. It is the only 3-cost spell in the deck that is an adaptation that the Pirate aggro players have started to lean towards. They really want consistent Zap Spray Fins. And if you wait until next turn, you could at least try and top deck something like a Vile Feast, or, you know, he only had the 1 Unspeakable Heart, so it'd have to be Vile Feast to kill the Keg in response. But now you really are just saying, you know, go ahead, play that Noxian Fervor. You're really bluffing the Vile Feast, and this is a very hard bluff for Nagashi, but it is actually going to pay out. Xeloo not going to fire off that Fervor.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No Fervor on the side of Xeloo. And for anybody who's watching who might be a little new to the game, what Boulevard is referring to there with the Zap Spray Fin, and this is something that a lot of people said when it first came out, was, you know, you can choose what spell you grab with it based on your deck building decisions. And a lot of the people now playing Pirate aggro are opting for just 3 Noxian Fervors in the Pirate aggro deck, meaning that you guarantee drawing a Noxian Fervor because it's the only cheap spell in there that Zap Spray Fin will go ahead and pull. So obviously here, super big that that's the case, because we not only have the 2 elusive damage coming through with Zap Spray Fin, but we will also have likely 3 damage coming through with Noxian Fervor. That means we only have to push through 2 more damage. And from the looks of it, we'll be able to do that because this Harsh Winds will not get Nagashi out of this one. Yeah, we're probably, I imagine Frostbite, you know, the Jagged Butcher, the Hired Gun, that means the Precious Pet will get through. That's 2 damage. And actually, sorry, no, that means we are still 2 off of lethal, if that's the case.
Well, I mean, we do have the Decimate and the Noxian Fervor.
Oh, yeah, plus Decimate. So
yeah. we actually have lethal even if we deal no damage on the attacks here out of Xeloo. But he wants to get the mana commitment out of Nagashi first so that there's not as much left for healing. And with 3 mana left, I mean, Xeloo's already respecting the Vile Feast, but that 2 damage that's going to come out of the Hired Gun does mean that he's out of range for the Vile Feast. So this Harsh Winds is actually going to be the death sentence for Nagashi, just too large of a mana commitment, and it will be the Precious Pet that is going to sneak through. You should actually know that Nagashi's not going to have a Vile Feast now as well, because if he did, I would assume that he would throw it onto that Precious Pet, but maybe that's not even an assumption that you go for, because, you know, you do still have that Noxian Fervor that you could proactively play onto it.
Yeah.
And there's even a little bit of damage pushed through by the Iron Ballista.
Yeah, this is GG's coming up here on the side of Xeloo. Nothing Nagashi can do about it, and this is why this is better than Nightfall aggro. This is why we just saw Nightfall aggro get trounced for 2 games, And now we have something like Pirate Aggro do the exact opposite and win quite handedly, I gotta say.
So if the Pirate aggro didn't get banned, I would assume it's the discard that got banned. I don't think you're ever banning Nightfall aggro, are you?
No, he selected discard. Looks like discard is getting queued up.
So it actually was the Nightfall ban. That's interesting.
I don't get it. I do not get this Nightfall deck. Like, I don't understand. I don't think it's that great. And maybe, again, maybe that's just because when we've seen it play, it tends to lose. So maybe that's just a statistics thing. But, and then what you just said, B, I don't understand why other people ban it. Like, with how often we've seen it lose, I don't really see too much to be scared of. But I don't know. This wait, is it the Atrocity version?
There's got to be something with scrims. It's the exact same 3 decks that Eric's brought.
It might be something with scrims. You might be right. You know, these players might be practicing on the side, and they're seeing that certain matchups just go terrible when playing against Nightfall. And maybe, I mean, think about Nightfall versus Zombie Ash. I mean, is that kind of I guess that's a good matchup for the Nightfall deck. Just like we saw Pirate Aggro take down Zombie Ash, so it seems like Aggro can have an okay time against Zombie Ash.
Oh yeah, aggro is Zombie Ash's one weakness.
Yeah.
I really liked it in the meta where we weren't really seeing it, but now as we do see a consistent return to this, but we are actually going to swap over to the Lee Sin on the side of Nagashi.
Let's go. That's what I like to see.
So this is important because this is the way that this team tournament is structured. The amount of games that you win matters because it earns points for your team. So while generally in like a Swiss tournament, we'd be like, okay, you know, just like queue up the Zombie Ash again, go ahead and take your on your O2. It just is what it is. Here, a 1-2 is actually significantly better than an O2.
Yeah.
So I do like the swap here on the side of Nagashi. At least wants to pick up one win with this deck.
Yeah, points matter. So I got to agree with you there. And we do see the early aggression coming out of Nagashi too. So this is interesting because this deck we were just talking about earlier, you know, only Lee Sin versus Zed and Lee Sin. So there's two things going on here. Nagashi will have likely plenty of heal. We have both Eye of the Dragons in hands right now. Plus we have kind of like anti-aggression, if that makes sense. Like he can respond to Xeloo's aggression with his own aggression with this Zed and might be able to get a decent amount of value, especially because most of the units in discard aggro are quite small. Their attack might be high, but their life total is not, which means that this quick attack from Zed might prove to be a big deal.
On top of that, I mean, we've got the 2 Eye of the Dragons in the hand of Nagashi, so might be able to start to build up these Dragonlings. Doesn't really have the hand to go for it just yet, which is really awkward considering the amount of spells that he plays. As we had mentioned, this is a very follower light version of the Lee Sin.
No,
is it going to go ahead and give himself an effective blocker here with the Zenith Blade?
Yeah, and not only that, this is perfect. I mean, now he activates Nightfall with Pale Cascade. We can block and get a kill on the Draven. Ooh.
Or we can walk right into a...
That's rough.
You hate to see it.
That's rough.
But even then, the Zenith Blade is still going to feel good because you actually kill this Flame Chompers. It's not a trick that Xeloo's going to be able to get down twice in a row. Yeah,
no, I got to agree. And Flame Chompers, you know... it's actually a useful card. It wasn't for the longest time, but this is why, you know, I think people underestimate the value of being able to pull something all the way to the left, something like a lifesteal unit, or in this case, a pretty substantial blocker in this 2/5 Eye of the Dragon. And it feels bad as well because now we're not going to get the Dragonling next turn. Because you don't want to play the Pale Cascade now. You want to play the Pale Cascade in response to something to get some sort of trade. So we almost have to make sure we get both Dragonlings for next turn now.
Yeah, I think we are going to see the Pale Cascade on this turn, which makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah, now I'm curious to see if Xeloo actually lines up a blocker onto these Eye of the Dragons here to prevent this damage, or just lets them go through, kind of playing around the Pale Cascade.
Maybe. I think that Nagashi's going to be fine as long as he gets the draw. He doesn't really care too much about the extra damage that he pushes. But one thing that I did want to mention about this Flame Chompers, if you played way back in like closed beta, or I guess it was open beta, and you know, Jinx Draven was a deck, discard aggro existed, and you didn't really see Flame Chompers. The difference between Flame Chompers back then and Flame Chompers now is the meta back then was very wide, very board-centric decks. Yeah. It was fearsome aggro. It was, you know, it was Bannerman. It was elusives. The Flame Chompers really didn't do a whole lot. I feel like now mid-range and control decks exist more, and they play less and less sort of units than they used to. So your opponent generally will only have like 1 or 2 units in the early game. If you can get one of those out of the way, you've got a big attack turn, whereas previously your opponent had just as many units on board as you did.
Yeah, and if you look at the hand of Xeloo, we have going into turn 5, we will be able to discard. Actually, he can discard his hand this turn before turn 5 starts to level up this Jinx. So this might actually be like Xeloo might be able to take this away even with 2 of these Dragonlings coming out here next turn. This is gonna be.
It looks like he is gonna go for it, and I actually like that a lot because you can then use the Super Mega Death Rocket to clear out the Dragonlings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's basically 4 more damage because that's 2 instances of lifesteal that you're preventing on your open attack. And I do think this will just be game. I mean, Nagashi would. I mean, even if Nagashi draws a deny to deny the Super Mega Death Rocket, that's a swing in mana tempo. You know, with the Super Mega Death Rocket only costing 1 now.
Well, it does depend what actually comes off the top for Xeloo, because he does still have 2 cards in hand that he's going to have to get down. If he can draw like a Rummage or a Get Excited, then it's pretty much over. But it does kind of depend on what he draws here. There are some misses that don't let this rocket come down, but I think he's still go, at least for the 2 quick attacks.
That'll work. Those will all work. Basically, the perfect cards in hand to go ahead and discard absolutely everything. Imagine we'll see it come down next here, and that might wrap it up here for Xeloo.
Yeah. Nagashi manages to draw pretty much every follower in his deck, just really having a rough time with these Eye of the Dragons. You know, wanted to take the better matchup into this game, but it doesn't matter as Xeloo gets down the Jinx Draven combo, and that is the problem with the Lee Sin deck. Really not a lot of removal. You are very reliant on getting your Lee Sin online in order to start picking off units on your opponent's side of the field, and if you leave these Jinx around for too long, you get situations like this where the Poro Cannon is going to come down, get you this Super Mega Death Rocket, clear out those life steals, and that is, I don't think it's going to be lethal. I forgot about the damage from the Super Mega Death Rocket. Yeah, that's going to be pretty close to lethal.
I think that's lethal. And I mean, there's no other way for him to heal Nagashi. Deep med feels that's just like you're.
Oh, Pale Cascade here would save a Dragonling.
Okay, that definitely helps. Keeping that lifesteal on the board might make a difference here in not actually losing the game this turn. I don't know if it actually wins the game for Nagashi, but... And I gotta say, too, all right, this is why I love discard aggro. Like, this is a good deck, but I think one of the reasons why it doesn't see as much play as it could is because it's very RNG type. Like, it's like this is the perfect outcome for Xeloo, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of crappy draws in this deck. He could have drawn way worse than he drew here.
Quick immediate thing. Does Xeloo play his Poros over his 2 non-elusive units and just attack with 4 elusives and 2 quick attacks to further deny this Dragonling?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I was just going through my head earlier if he just attacks with like the quick attack units, but actually, yeah, I like that even better. If he overwrites the 2-1 and the 2-2, yeah, then there's no lifesteal still. That's that's ridiculous. And if that's the case, what is that? 4? You're still only doing 4 damage. Right? So you actually still only get them down to 1. So
but even then,
well, there's still all right, there's a chance though, because how many times have we seen decks go down to 1 life, especially decks like this Lee Sin deck, and then suddenly they're at 20 again.
I don't think we've seen the Lee Sin deck go from 1 to 20.
No. Usually it involves karma.
yeah.
Lee Sin, we need some guiding touches in here. We need way more Dragonlings.
I mean, I have seen Spirit's Refuge in this deck before, but I mean, there's really no anti-aggro tech out of Nagashi on this one. There's no tasty Fey Folk. You know, it's just the Dragonlings in terms of life gain, as well as the guiding touches, which we barely count. Now, those definitely I feel like those go down onto units about as often as they go down onto face, but looks like Xeloo's really contemplating whether or not he wants to overwrite these units, and he is going to go for it. I think we'll see. I think we'll see the Draven held back. Maybe we care about the Axe to try and facilitate an easier Jinx turn next turn, but I don't know. Maybe we're just going to value the life total on the Draven instead, because it's not going to kill one of the Dragonlings. Or one of the Eye of the Dragons.
So rather. I guess the question for Nagashi is, how do we get rid of these daring Poros? Because these will actually win the game for Xeloo, and I don't think there's a way for Nagashi to do that.
So the Dragonlings are just going to negate the damage from the Super Mega Death Rocket, but I mean, Nagashi does have a deny, which means the Dragonlings will actually negate the damage from the daring Poros. I mean, it's not out of the question for Nagashi to kind of claw his way back into this one, especially if he can pick up a Lee Sin in a timely fashion. But I mean, as you had mentioned, it's pretty RNG dependent on what comes out of this discard aggro deck, and this is not great for Nagashi.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Get excited. I was just focusing on what Nagashi drew, but the get excited on the side of Xeloo. I think that's just game. He would actually. Yeah. No. You can't even deep med into 2 guiding touches because you don't have the mana.
He's got exact mana to play all the cards.
Yeah, and 7 damage coming down this turn I think is just far too much for Nagashi to. There's actually no combination of cards that Nagashi could possibly have. And
not on 6 mana. And even if you didn't, I mean, we're getting down an arena battlecaster with 4 Daring Poros.
The ultimate combo. See, everybody, this is why Daring Poro is good right here. It's the exact reason.
When I do matchup breakdowns, I try to find like, this is why this deck beats it, and not try to find like super niche scenarios. And this is definitely like one of those scenarios where it's like, how often does this actually happen? Where you're like, I'll just take my 4 Daring Poros and jam them down your throat until you choke on them. Like that's.
Wow, that got aggressive real fast. Jesus.
That's my point. Xeloo got real aggressive real fast. This Jinx was leveled on turn 4.
Hey man, these niche scenarios are what we live for. Okay, we love seeing this stuff.
Yeah, maybe you live for it. I hate this.
Oh man. Yeah, this feels bad too because Nagashi probably thinks he might have a chance, but not knowing that Get Excited is in Xeloo's hand. You know, this is still. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't lose this turn because he is going to go up to 5 off these Dragonlings, so the Super Mega Death Rocket not actually going to kill him.
Wait, did Xeloo not block the? Okay, well he'll get the rocket to kill it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's dying to the rocket anyway, and I think that the death of that extra. I mean, alongside just how much damage is coming in off these Daring Poros, I think you might even overwrite the Draven here.
Is there a way we can get a Withering Wail into Nagashi's hand?
No.
hey, I have to think of this stuff, okay? I'm doing my best here. All right, yeah. This is a case of like Nagashi is doing, his deck is doing everything that it can and what it's supposed to do, which is generate tokens.
It could have drawn a lot more spells and gotten these eyes on a little bit earlier.
I guess, but I think it really came down to those first couple of turns with Xeloo. That challenge, I think that Flame Chopper challenge actually made a world of difference in this game.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think it actually kind of sealed the deal very early for Xeloo, and that's going to be 2 quick wins with aggro decks there.
I actually don't think it mattered in the long run just because the unit that it would have blocked did end up getting overwritten anyway. And we saw a pretty big overkill there on the side of Xeloo, but yeah, in the immediate, it definitely didn't feel good.
Wow. So, yeah, we're going to have 3. So that's 2 matches straight now where a player in each match brought 3 aggro decks. Straight aggro lineup. All right, Xeloo taking it home, it looks like, with that aggro deck lineup. So good to see aggro back on top here for a little bit. I know Lee Sin is obviously a super prominent deck in the meta, so maybe that's why a lot of people are starting to shift towards aggro. But overall, awesome games to watch. Super fun seeing Team Gears versus Team OTK go head-to-head here. And usually we do try to do these LRA games during the week. So don't forget to tune into my Twitch channel when we do go live to cast those live for you guys. But as always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.